Number 9. Maria Elizabeth Pena Echeveria. Teenager Maria Elizabeth Pena Echeveria was arrested by North Carolina law enforcement in May of 2021 in connection to a man's brutal killing at Mount Olivet Cemetery in Raleigh. According to an official press release, 69-year-old James Lacey Taylor had been found critically injured on the cemetery's grounds on the night of May the 28th. He was officially pronounced dead upon being transported to a nearby hospital. People who'd been present at the graveyard around the time of the incident told investigators that they'd seen 2 men and a woman fleeing the scene in 2 separate vehicles, a dark-colored pickup truck and a sedan that was either brown or blue. A state worker subsequently came upon a pile of clothes, shoes, and latex gloves positioned near a splatter of blood on the ground, prompting them to dial 911. Officers found Taylor gravely wounded, a short distance from the rest of the articles of evidence. The day after Pena Echeveria's arrest, the authorities announced that 2 additional teenage suspects, one of whom was named as Jonathan Dan Villanueva Gala, had been taken into custody on suspicion of being involved in Taylor's murder. When the shooting occurred, Villanueva Gala was reportedly out on parole for previous convictions that included driving while impaired and felony breaking and entering. Number 8. Yolanda Galgia. Police in Killeen, Texas, received reports of a shooting at the Calvary Baptist Church Garden of Memories Cemetery shortly after 5 p.m. on March the 22nd of 2022. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a pair of gunshot victims, one of whom was treated for minor injuries by emergency responders and released a short time later. The other victim, 52-year-old Yolanda Galgia, had sustained far more severe injuries, and she was ultimately pronounced dead about 2 hours later. In the incident's aftermath, it was detailed how on the day of her death, Galgia had gone to the cemetery to visit her deceased son's gravesite on what would have been his 22nd birthday. Although the cause of death for Galgia's son wasn't specified in subsequent reports, Facebook posts from the young man's father indicated that he'd passed away on New Year's Day 2022. Killeen police immediately launched an investigation into the fatal shooting, but as of the case's most recent updates, a suspect hadn't yet been identified. Number 7. Elvira Navarro. New York woman Elvira Navarro was tending to graves at Baron Hirsch Cemetery in Staten Island on October the 28th of 2021 when a massive headstone toppled to the ground. According to the Navarro family's attorney, the 2,000-pound monument fell directly on top of the 53-year-old woman while she was working next to her son, Anthony Rosales. Navarro was taken to Richmond University Medical Center, where she ultimately died as a result of her crushing injuries. On the day of the tragic accident, Navarro and her son had been dispatched to the Graniteville burial grounds to perform some work at the site on behalf of their third-party employer. In the incident's aftermath, the family filed a negligence lawsuit in Manhattan Supreme Court against the Baron Hirsch Cemetery Association. The civil litigation alleged that Navarro's death had been directly caused by the organization's failure to properly maintain the grounds. Number 6. Sheamus Burcham. On the morning of Christmas Eve 2021, the Meridian Police Department in Mississippi received a call about 2 men roaming through Mecklemore Cemetery with metal detectors. Officers were dispatched to the scene a short time later and came upon a man later identified as Sheamus Burcham as he was in the process of digging up a grave. In a statement released by the department's police patrol sergeant, the suspect hadn't dug very deep by the time he was found by law enforcement, who immediately took him into custody. Burcham was consequently charged with desecration of a cemetery or corpses, a misdemeanor in the state of Mississippi. Number 5. The Shantae King Sr.'s funeral. On June the 2nd of 2022, gunfire broke out during an afternoon funeral at the Graceland Cemetery in Racine, Wisconsin. The memorial service, as was detailed in subsequent reports, was being held in honor of Shantae King Sr., a local man who'd been killed by the police during a shootout precipitated by a contentious traffic stop. The Racine chief of police indicated that officers had initially pulled King over to execute a search warrant for a felon in possession of a gun. The situation abruptly escalated after King had got out of his vehicle and started fleeing on foot. Officers gave chase and eventually resorted to shooting the man because he'd reportedly refused to drop his weapon. In the wake of the funeral shooting, investigators gathered from witness testimony that there had been between 20 and 30 gunshots fired in total. It subsequently emerged that as many as 5 mourners had been injured in the incident, some of whom were identified as members of King's family. Fortunately, no one was killed in the attack. As of the latest updates on the matter, Racine police were still working to identify the individual or group responsible for the incident. Number 4. Dale Laprade. In September of 2018, the authorities in Bridgeport, Connecticut, received reports that more than 100 graves at Park City Cemetery had been disturbed, stacked, or desecrated. City officials launched an investigation to ascertain the reason for the dilapidated condition of the grounds. Officers sent to inspect the area reportedly found disturbed dirt, garbage, and overturned headstones haphazardly strewn across the graveyard. Detectives also discovered bone fragments and pieces of caskets that dated back more than 100 years. Some of the detritus had been discarded on the ground of the cemetery, while other bits of debris were found in the woods nearby. In December of 2018, it was announced during a news conference that the police had arrested Dale Laprade, the operator of the Park City Cemetery. She was accused of intentionally disturbing plots in the cemetery, some of which reportedly belonged to Civil War veterans, in order to create space for new graves. In the wake of Laprade's arrest, it also emerged that the 64-year-old had allegedly embezzled more than $60,000 of the cemetery's money during her tenure as the historic site's manager. While awaiting her trial on charges of first-degree larceny, second-degree larceny, and interfering with the cemetery, Laprade reportedly passed away from complications stemming from cardiovascular disease. Number 3. Jose Luis Torres Garcia. On February the 17th of 2020, several people were gunned down at the Perris Valley Cemetery in Perris, California. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department soon identified 33-year-old Jose Luis Torres Garcia as the prime suspect in what was a triple murder investigation. Garcia, a twice-deported Mexican national, was reportedly with the victims all night leading up to their violent deaths. While investigators didn't disclose a specific motive for the killings, suspicions arose that they were somehow connected to cartel violence south of the border. After reports surfaced that Garcia was wanted in connection to the incident, he fled California, triggering an extensive manhunt that extended into neighboring states. Law enforcement in Cheyenne, Wyoming, eventually spotted him driving a 2007 GMC Yukon on Interstate 80 and detained him without further incident. He was jailed at the Laramie County Detention Center pending his extradition back to California to stand trial for murder. Today's topic was requested by The One Silver Shadow and Dead Girl 77. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Brian Montalvo Tolentino and Juan Burgos Lopez. The Lake County Sheriff's Office in Florida received reports of vandalism at Edgewood Cemetery in early December of 2020. Deputies who'd been dispatched to inspect the scene reportedly discovered that grave robbers had dug up 4 separate graves and stolen human remains from each of the burial sites. It was also determined that the vandals had damaged a 5th grave, which they'd ultimately abandoned without gaining access to it. In January of the following year, police announced that they'd identified a pair of suspects named as Brian Montalvo Tolentino and Juan Burgos Lopez. During a news conference, local authorities detailed how the men had allegedly performed the grave robbery for ritualistic purposes prior to vandalizing the burial sites. Tolentino and Lopez had reportedly spit Bacardi rum on the ground and exhaled cigar smoke near the headstones, which was done in order to protect them from evil spirits. In doing so, they inadvertently provided law enforcement with evidence, as investigators subsequently used the DNA found on cigars left at the crime scene to identify them. It was further revealed that the vandals had targeted the burial sites of military veterans whom they'd believed to have stronger spirits. Tolentino and Lopez were booked into the Polk County Jail on 4 counts each of disturbing the contents of a grave and abuse of a dead body. Number 1. Majera Benjamin Longaho. Arkansas police was made aware of a vandalism incident at Oakland Cemetery Park in Little Rock in the summer of 2020. As it was subsequently reported, an individual had spray-painted various phrases on a Confederate memorial obelisk and several other grave sites on the night of July the 9th. Investigators determined that the suspect had intended the graffiti to be a form of protest against the controversial structures erected in honor of key figures of the Confederate South during the American Civil War. The 20-foot stone monument was covered in politically charged phrases such as "Black Lives Matter," "No Justice, No Peace," as well as derogatory statements directed toward then-President Donald Trump. The police were able to use surveillance footage from the cemetery to identify the perpetrator as 30-year-old Majera Benjamin Longaho. He was taken into custody on charges of first-degree criminal mischief and desecration or removal of a cemetery or grave marker. Officials publicly announced that the man had further been charged with conspiracy and use of explosive materials for malicious damage to federal property. The accusations were connected to an incident in which he'd allegedly thrown firebombs at police vehicles. Longaho pleaded not guilty to each of the offenses, and his attorney filed a motion to have all his federal charges dismissed. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be buried alive for 2 days or have all your house furniture removed for 6 months? Let us know in the comments section below.